Oh, well, hey, I recently, this last winter, had the chance to go visit my family in Dallas. My family lives all over the place. My sister lives in the Dallas area with her husband and little one. My brother lives in the Nashville area with his wife and his little one. And my parents currently live in Florida. Poor babies. I look outside and I'm like, oh. and we're up here in Iowa. But every year for Christmas, we tend to try and figure out kind of where to land. And so what we did is we got an Airbnb down in the Dallas area because my sister has the youngest child. And so we figured it'd be hardest for them to travel. So we got an Airbnb down there, and the whole family just kind of descended on my sister, which is awesome. But we got there actually a few days earlier than my brother. And because my brother and my sister have littles, my kids are 15 and 12, my mom, Nana is what our kids call her, decided that the kids got to pick the itinerary for those first couple days. And so she's like throwing out like, hey, we could go to like some arcades, we could go to like an amusement park or something. And my kids being my kids are like, we want to go to the JFK Museum, which was awesome. If you ever have a chance when you're in Dallas to visit the JFK Museum, do it. It is an exciting experience. It's a mind-opening experience. It's a very, very cool interaction, being able to kind of live through that history. For me, like I'm only 40 years old, so I wasn't alive when he was assassinated, and so being able to understand the cultural impact of that moment was a really profound day. But like every museum, like you go through the stuff and you end up ending at the gift shop. And as in the gift shop, you see coffee cups and bumper stickers, all this JFK memorabilia, and most of it with his famous inaugural address comment that I've known my whole life, but has been sitting specifically in my brain ever since that trip. You see, on a brisk January day in 1961, President-elect John F. Kennedy walked up to the podium to take the oath of office to become the 35th President of the United States. And it's on that day that he delivered his now famous inaugural address where he stated this timeless phrase. And I'm not going to do a JFK impression because that would be terrible. But ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Now, it was a profound statement at the time on this idea of civic duty and collective ownership of the country and its ideals. The idea that this great American experiment was at its best when we came together, when we built our future alongside one another as brothers and sisters and co-laborers, and then owning that result together. That our identity as Americans was more than simply what we consumed, but instead what we built together. That statement still very much resonates today, more than 60 years later, but for me, with a slightly different take. What if we applied JFK's statement on the American church? Ask not what your church can do for you, but what you can do for your church. Or put another way, stop searching for how churches will serve you, and instead search for ways to serve the mission of God. Tom Raynor is a pastor and founder of and CEO of Church Answers. He's a podcast host and author, and really just works with pastors and church leaders all over the country on some really cool stuff. Recently, he put together his list when he was talking about this idea of serving the mission of God and the idea of consumerism in the church. He put together his list of his favorite complaints that he actually got from pastors. My first one is awesome. These are complaints that pastors have actually gotten that have worked alongside Tom. We need a small group for cat lovers. Never heard that one? Here's one. I developed cancer because you don't preach from the King James Version. Medical alert. We've just made a huge new discovery in cancer research. Holy cow. All right. Preachers who don't wear suits and ties aren't saved. It's in the Bible. I missed that verse. I missed the verse that explains Peter and Paul going to shop at Men's Warehouse. That would be a fun section. Or this one I thought was hilarious. If Jesus sang from the red hymnals, why don't we? Are you sure it was the red hymnal and not the blue hymnal? Or this one is a real one. I had to actually go to the podcast where he actually referred to this. It was on his list, but he referenced the podcast. I had to look back and I had to actually listen to this. It was insane, but this was an actual one he got. I'm leaving the church because the toilet paper in the ladies' room was always facing the wrong way. I kind of get that. I mean, like, the correct way is always over the front, not over the back, because beards are cooler than mullets. All right? We laugh, and we should. These are ridiculous. But believe it or not, they're not all that uncommon. And I would say might even be indicative of a greater problem in a lot of our churches today. See, my opinion, I think that the most insidious problem facing the American church today, not necessarily whiting, just churches in general, is the need to play the world's consumer-minded game. The need to play the marketing game, the consumer game, the need to sell. We get lured into the need for bigger, brighter lights, bigger events, financial success, the idea of competition. We get so fired up trying to convince the world that we are right and that we are powerful. We miss the need for humility and love. Where being right becomes more important than being truly righteous. And gaining influence and power take the place of service and sacrifice. You see, when that happens, we inadvertently turn the gospel into a commodity to be sold in different flavors to feed each person's particular tastes. Rather than the earth-shattering good news of Jesus changing the world through love, we become stuck in denominational, cultural, political, or theological battles that only serve to divide us further. So in the spirit of JFK's words, ask not what the mission of God can do for you, but instead, how are you called to serve the mission of God? Now see, the answer to that question is often alarming. And it will often take you well past what you would normally consider comfortable. In Matthew 16, Jesus is teaching on this very topic. And in verse 24, he says this, then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? This little piece of Jesus' teaching is so important, it's actually repeated in all four Gospels in some way. You can see it in Luke 9, you can see it in Mark 8, and while you don't get this exact quote in John, you get allusions to it throughout the entire book. Pick up your cross and follow me. Take up your cross. Now, when we say that today, we think of the holy symbol. We think, yeah, I am a Christian. Pick up my cross so everybody can see me. That's not what it means. When Jesus said this, the church didn't really exist yet. The cross was not a holy symbol at this moment. The cross was a device of torture. It was a symbol of death. It was a symbol of humiliation. It wasn't an identifying factor that anybody wanted. So when he tells them to pick up their cross, he is telling them to accept not just a death sentence, but a humiliating death sentence. To accept the humiliation in the eyes of the world in order to follow him. He's telling them to release their desires, to release their agendas, and accept the appearance of failure in the eyes of the world for the benefit of a greater reality. This is the great upside-down command of following Jesus. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it. You want to be great? Be nothing. In other words, in order to live up to the promise that God has for you, you have to be willing to give up the life you have built or the life that you are hoping to build. To lay down our accomplishments, lay down our pride at the feet of Jesus. We are called to live sacrificially, giving it all up for the sake of others and the sake of our God. That's the goal. It's not about us. In John, Jesus sets up this amazing logical argument that at first glance, all right, great, yeah, love is good. But you'll see, we'll break it down here. You can see this in John 15, verse 12. This is Jesus talking. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. So here's the argument that he lays out. 1, love as I have loved you. The way you are supposed to love the world, the way you are supposed to love others, is the way I love others. That's what he's saying. Then he says, the greatest love is sacrifice, to die for your friends. You are my friends if you do what I say. So this has an implication after you hear it. Yeah, the listener is supposed to say, am I a friend of Jesus? If I am, then I need to do what he says. What does he say to do? He says to love others in the same way he loved us. How did he love us? He died. He died for his friends. And who are Jesus' friends? The ones that do what he says. So in other words, if we're going to be friends of Jesus, if we're going to be Jesus followers, if we're going to follow Jesus like we say we are, if we're going to be excited about running after the gospel, that means doing what he says. And what does he say? He says, give up your life. Give up your agendas. Give up your pride. Lose your life. If we are truly followers of Jesus, then we follow his lead. And we sacrifice our own desires, our own agendas, and even our lives for the sake of those around us. That's not entirely a unique assessment. When you go through all of human history, you're met with hero after hero in different cultures who made themselves a martyr for their culture, or who died on behalf of their friends, or died on behalf of their country, or died on behalf of their belief. But with the gospel, that calling goes much deeper. Luke 6, verse 32. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. Verse 35, but love your enemies. Do good to them. Lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because He is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. The call to be sacrificial, to pick up our cross, to follow Jesus, is a very hard one to answer. So a normal reaction, if you're human like all of us, a normal reaction is to justify my own inaction, to justify my own unwillingness to sacrifice by convincing myself that there are people in my life that don't deserve this kind of treatment. I might convince myself that some people don't deserve to be given the same blessings that I've been given. That they need to earn my trust, or maybe earn it back, before I can ever treat them with the same grace that I've been given. You see, we as a people are really good at justifying our own actions and convincing ourselves that what we're comfortable with is actually who we're asked to be. And Jesus knew this, which is why he has this teaching, and he leans in hard to make it crystal clear what true Christian love is supposed to look like. We don't simply love the people that love us. We don't simply serve the people that serve us. We don't simply show grace to those who agree with us. Because if we continue to do that, we wouldn't be any different from the rest of the world. If we only took care of the people we liked, we would simply be one more tribe, one more group among many, not a blessing, not living out our purpose, and certainly not the light on a hill that we are called to be as God's church. Instead, Jesus calls us to go beyond what others find acceptable and to love the ones we don't like, to love the ones that don't like us, even to love the ones that are actively working against us, to love our enemies, to love those who hate us. We're called not only to serve those who help us back, but to serve those who can't help us or won't help us. Or even those who don't welcome the help at all. We need to help them too. We're called to give to those who won't return the favor. To give to those who might not even appreciate the gesture. The thing that makes us Christians, the thing that makes us Jesus followers, the thing that makes us unique in the world is not how much we are loved, but it's how freely and how radically we love others. Let me be clear. If you call yourself a Jesus follower, there is no human being in existence that you should claim as your enemy. There's no group of people. There's no tribe, there's no country, no political party, no human being in existence that you are called to see as an enemy. Every single person created in the image of God, from regular church attender to murderer sitting on death row, is a potential brother or sister on our mission to help Jesus redeem the world. Our mission is to love them. They are not your enemy. They are the people we are called to welcome into the family of God. Our very existence as the body of Christ, the ecclesia, which means the sent out ones, is built around the mission of loving creation back into relationship with God. Not arguing it back, not beating it into submission, loving creation back into relationship with God. Everything we have, every blessing we have been given, our skills, our gifts, our money, even the very breath in our lungs is given to us by God to equip us for this task, to love the world back into relationship with Jesus. They will know we are his disciples by our love, not by our success, not by our influence, not by our church membership, political affiliation, bumper stickers, but by our love. A love that goes so far beyond the norm that the rest of the world calls it foolishness. A love for those that hate us. A love so visible, so shocking, so countercultural that we are mocked openly for it. Not mocked as judgmental hypocrites, which is typically the story we see online today or on TV. Not that stereotype, but instead mocked as foolish idealists who love people to the point of putting myself in danger. That's the win. When we love so thoroughly, so recklessly, that the world finds it hilarious, we've done our job. That's how Jesus loved. That's how we're supposed to love. And anything less is missing the mark from what Jesus commanded us to do. It's not about us. Romans 12, verse 1. This is Paul writing, and he says, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. For by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment, in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you. Do not conform to the pattern of this world." That pattern is to chase after our own agenda, to chase our own success, to hoard my own comfort. But instead, we're called to be transformed by the renewing of our mind, by accepting the new life offered to us in Jesus. By doing that, we're supposed to let go of this superficial need to be great on our own, because it's not about us. The effect of a changed life in Jesus is sacrificial living. Pick up your cross and follow me. The effect of following Jesus is sacrificial living, offering yourself as a living sacrifice, not distracted by the need to win, not driven by personal gain, by comfort or security, not afraid to face uncertainty, not afraid to lose standing or influence. Because we know, as Jesus followers, as children of God, we know that our worth has already been decided. Our value has already been claimed. God cherishes us. The greatest authority in the universe loves you, claims you. What more do we need? Our value has already been decided. We are claimed by the creator of the universe, and therefore no amount of humiliation, no amount of rejection in the world, none of that will ever threaten to diminish the value given to us by God. So we can march into that without fear. In fact, as Jesus followers, we are free to be sacrificial. It's not a command. It's not a penance so much. I mean, it is a command, but it's not a penance that we have to soberly just lean in sadly. No, it's a privilege. We get to be sacrificial. We get to have such assurance in God that we can risk it all without any fear of failure. Because we know, as Jesus followers, that if the worst happens, we are with Jesus. No matter what comes, we're in eternity. There's no reason to ever fear failure, humiliation, rejection ever again. It's a privilege. We get to risk it all. The mark of a Christian isn't what you look like. It's not what you talk like, what you accomplish, how good you are, how influential you are. In fact, the mark of a Christian isn't really about you at all. The mark of a Christian, are you radically, emphatically, recklessly sacrificial? Is your life about you? Or is it about others? If you want to be a disciple of Christ, pick up your cross. Pick up your death sentence. Release your pride. Release your wealth, success, and be willing to be humiliated, forgotten, and impoverished by the world around you for the sake of others. Because that is what greatness looks like to God. Our salvation, our ticket to paradise, our acceptance into heaven, the fact that we are forgiven is an amazing, earth-shattering tool to help change the world. Don't waste it. Because of our salvation, we are untouchable. Nothing can actually harm us. We have no reason to fear anybody or anything in this world. Because again, if the worst happens, my next thought's with Jesus. I have no reason to ever be afraid. And guys, that isn't the case for everybody outside these walls. That reality just isn't the case for people that aren't with Jesus. Therefore, because we are untouchable, because we are saved, we should stand so close to them. We should stand so close to the hurting, so close to the lost, so close to the hated, that the rocks that are thrown at them hit us instead. Because if they hit us, we're with Jesus. In doing so, we will live out the radical mission of Jesus Christ and change the world through his example of sacrificial love. Again, ask not what the mission of God can do for you, but instead, how are you called to serve the mission of God? Pick up your cross. Let's pray.